Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Stray Pixels podcast, which, if you'd pre-ordered, would have come with an exclusive steelbook, 200,000 Noisy Cash, and a premium figure of Bailey dabbing. I am Noisy Pixels staff writer Colin Buchanan, and I'm joined as usual by my co-hosts, my fellow staff writer Nathan Mejia, and our editor-in-chief Bailey C. Mangle. How are you guys doing this week?
Pretty pog-chop, man. Wild week.
It's been a wild week for me. For him, it's for the reason why we're doing this podcast. For me, it's because Ghostwire Tokyo, Kirby, and Ruin Factory 5 decided, you know what? Nathan don't get a week this week.
You got Kirby?
I got Kirby.
Mm.
I mean, for me, it's because our boss almost got murdered.
Yeah, that's pretty fucked up.
He's fine. He's fine. He's
right.
making Twitter jokes about it. It's fine.
He's fine.
We've all got shot at.
Metaphorically speaking.
A universal experience, that is, truly.
Have you ever been through Tucson, Arizona?
No, and based on the way you describe it, I hope never to visit.
Yeah, it's just all the people from Mexico coming to Tucson because it's like an hour away from Nogales. So
geography with Nathan.
Yeah, the very limited geography. I know Arizona and I know a little bit of California.
Okay, so some of you guys, I can speak words. Some of you guys at home may be kind of wondering, hey, weren't they doing like a whole different series that they kind of stopped for a couple of weeks? And yes, we have been doing a retrospective episode by episode on Final Fantasy, and that will continue. This is sort of a one-off for now. So if you guys didn't know, the day that we are recording this is, I believe, either the day or the day after the 20th anniversary of Kingdom Hearts releasing. And one of us is actually involved with an event that specifically is being held to celebrate that. Bailey, do you want to talk to us about March Caprice for a minute?
So March Caprice is a fan-led event that's purely online. And there's just a ton of like fan streams, artwork, musical arrangements, just like a lot of stuff. And it's been like a 3-day event. The day we're recording this is a Sunday, and it's the last day. And it's been a really wild time. There's also been a separate one called KH20. It's their first year. It's like it's like a pseudo in-person and online event. And they're coming back next year too, and we probably will too. So there's a lot happening.
Yeah.
So it's an in-person event, like what was it called? Key Bears?
So Key Bears, I believe, ended last year.
It did,
like,
yeah.
Yeah. So KH20 is like a brand new thing, completely like different people. But it's like being led by a bunch of like the newer content creators in the space. And they're going to rebrand to Reconnect next year because the KH20 name can't really stick past this year.
Yeah. It kind of amuses me that y'all are still using KH13. Like it just feels on the nose.
When Kingdom Hearts 13 is out, we're gonna have to be like bought out by Square Enix.
Yeah, man. You should be called the real KH13.
The true KH13.
Yeah, the true KH13.
So, as our own sort of little mini celebration of that, we are doing a Noisy Memories episode on the first game in the series. So obviously, Kingdom Hearts 1 came out in 2002 on the PlayStation 2 and is notable for being very different from every other game that followed it because they weren't really sure there were going to be games that followed it.
Yep.
The game is sort of known for having a bunch of like weird production, not errors, but like weird little trivia bits that don't make any sense going forward, and we're not sure why they happened. Like all the celebrity voice actors. If y'all didn't know, when you fight Sephiroth and he's like groaning and growling at you, that's Lance Bass. That's former Backstreet Boy Lance Bass.
Our boy Lance Bass, Sephiroth, man.
I could tell you that he wanted it that way.
And it's really funny because Mandy Moore was actually in Kingdom Hearts 1 before she was in Tango.
Yeah, she was Aerith, right?
Yeah.
Don't forget, Angel, my boy from Buffy, was our boy Squall / Leon.
Yep. Was he really?
Yes, he actually did a really good job. I was really disappointed when they didn't have him back.
And the funny thing is, like, this was back when like that show, like his show was still on too. Yeah. So
he was really popular back then too.
So my experience with the first Kingdom Hearts game, I actually played it for the first time at a friend's house, and my mom was like, "So Colin, what did you do at your friend's house?" And I was like, "Oh, I played this game that I keep seeing like ads for and stuff on the internet," because I was 8 years old, but I was already very much on the internet in 2002. And evidently, like, I must have described it really well or been like really hype about it, because my mom does not usually like buying me video games, but she immediately was like, "Oh, well then we'll have to get that one for you." And then I had to play it on my dad's PS2 when he wasn't home, so like 2 hours at a time.
Pog.
And then the most recent time I replayed the whole first game was when the 1.5 collection came out on the PS3, and I've kind of jumped and dabbled in it a couple times since then. Nate, how about you?
So I actually have a really good funny story about this, kind of roundabout. So when I first got to try it out, what happened was that my mom and my grandma lived door to door, so I would frequently go in between, and we'd share our backyard. So I was in my grandma's house watching TV, watching a Kingdom Hearts commercial.
Yo!
And it was the one where it was like all the summons. So you Simba and then Mushu coming out and everything as it plays Simple and Cling. My little brother comes running up and go, Nathan. I go, what? Mom just bought Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, shit.
I go, no, we don't. No, she didn't. We don't even have a PlayStation 2. So I go, whatever. I blow it off. I come home the next day because I decided to sleep at my grandma's. Sure as shit, my mom the day before bought a PS2 and Kingdom Hearts because of Kingdom Hearts.
Wow. How random.
Yeah. The only reason why I had a PS2 was because of Kingdom Hearts.
Wow. Yeah, that's kind of poggers, man.
I'm on
Bailey,
vacation all the time.
How about you?
So Kingdom Hearts 1 came out when I was, I believe, like 2 or 1 or something.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And my family got it for my sisters for Christmas, like the year it came out, like alongside the PS2. So like they got the PS2 like solely for Kingdom Hearts 1.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually that became the first game I ever played. So I grew up with the PS2 and SNES, but I primarily stuck to the PS2. And KH1, it's a really like probably the most significant game for me as a kid, but like when I was like growing up, like it kind of like determined the way I like view games now.
Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. It changed the way I view games.
Changed the way I view games, man. It's too big to like, even quantify. So so back then, so like I was obviously aware of what Disney was. I had no idea what Final Fantasy was. So I saw like Cloud and like Squall and Yuffie. I was like, yo, there's a lot of new characters in this. And I was like, Kingdom Hearts 1 kind of taught me, and I think it's a really good first game for me to have played because it's very non-linear. Like they don't really tell you what to do a lot of the time.
There's a difference between not telling you what to do and it being non-linear.
Yeah, so like it kind of taught me
it actually kind of is, because you can do stuff in different orders. But
yeah, like I think probably I think of all the games, I think KH1's probably the best design with the worlds. And I still kind of hold true to that. I probably wouldn't even be playing games if it wasn't for that game, honestly, because that was like my life for like 2 or 3 years.
I don't know that I would argue that it's got the best design worlds. The only ones that I can think of that necessarily approach it would be Dream Drop and maybe Birth by Sleep, but it's kind of hard to judge because Birth by Sleep is almost entirely worlds that we'd never seen before. But I liked the way that in Kingdom Hearts 1, sorry. Kingdom Hearts 1 places a much higher focus on platforming and verticality than a lot of the games that follow it. And so a lot of the worlds are very much leaned in that direction. I remember as a kid finding it absolutely maddening to try to get through Wonderland because there was so much freaking jumping around stuff. And the camera was fighting you the entire time, because you could not quite see where you were going a lot of the time. Kingdom Hearts 1 has not aged phenomenally well in comparison to several of the other games, just because it was the first in the series and there were a lot of like growing pains in terms of figuring out how they wanted the games to actually play. So there's a lot that's established here that gets really radically changed in later games. There's a lot of stuff that's a staple in later games that just isn't here at all. One thing that I kind of immediately think of is all of the summons that are that have much less focus and weight placed upon them in the later games because they were so broken in Kingdom Hearts 1. So Kingdom Hearts 1, the summons are all Disney characters whose worlds have been lost, and like their spirits inhabit these jewels that find their way to other worlds, and then they're brought forth into temporary existence by Sora. And I remember summoning Simba for the first time, who is the first one you get, and thinking, oh my god, that's so cool. He does like the roar and it's an area of effect attack. It was really cool. The game becomes completely broken once you get Tinkerbell and Bambi, though.
Yeah, man, they're pretty stupid.
Because Tinkerbell will constantly regenerate your health, and Bambi will give you basically infinite magic.
Yeah, and Tinkerbell even brings you back to life once if you die.
So they kind of noted that, and despite the fact that I would say that Kingdom Hearts 2 is actually a much easier game, they took away the more broken elements of the combat from the first game when they did their big redesign and inserted a whole bunch of new ones.
That's Kingdom Hearts, man. It's all just really broken.
Yeah, I mean, just constantly form change, switch forms constantly.
Form change and flow motion and
flow motion was so cool.
And use your targeting attack and link up, delink.
And then when Sora pendulum summons,
in Quadrata, man, he's gonna meet up with the Yu-Gi-Oh cast.
And in Kingdom Hearts 1, it really is like a lot of it starts out extremely simple. It is spam X at the right times. Kingdom Hearts 1 actually has one element that none of the other games in the series have, which was parrying enemy attacks to get experience points, which I believe was dropped because there were bugs where you could get infinite experience points using this trick.
There's a lot of weird things you could do with that.
But I think that when we were kids, it was just kind of the magic of playing through Disney worlds in a game that had like an amount of effort put into it. Because
it's like really impressive to me even back then. Like seeing those films playable in like a 3D space like that, like in the early 2000s, is pretty crazy to me, because I think like the only Disney games around then that were 3D were like the Toy Story one and like car like racers. It's like a very like different scale to this.
And this was back when like there were very, very few licensed games of quality around. Like Toy Story 2 for the PS1 is one of them. And I think that game being so successful was one of the reasons why we didn't see Pixar titles in Kingdom Hearts for so long. But it was so weird to be like wandering around all of these places that other games had tried and failed really dramatically to replicate, and seeing them be so fully formed. But something to kind of note is that sorry, my train of thought just crashed.
I mean, you gotta recover it, man.
Yes. And something to kind of note right off the bat is as soon as you leave the first major level of the game, which is Traverse Town, as a kid, I was like, wait, I can go in either direction. Technically, you can do any of the next 3 worlds in any order. And I actually did Deep Jungle first because I really liked Tarzan when I was a kid. And
that's a bad choice, Colin.
That was a mistake. So it wasn't necessarily just a mistake because of the way that the game hands out power-ups, because the cure spell is not given out until Deep Jungle, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, when you beat Clayton, you get it.
So that was kind of a happy accident, was I didn't go through the misery of doing the other 2 worlds without having the cure spell. It was mostly because Deep Jungle is infamous among the entire series for its really huge issue of not telling you what the fuck you're supposed to be doing.
Deep Jungle is like really, really not great.
Yeah, man. Gotta know when to cross the hippopotamuses, to climb the vines, to do the slide, just to go, not Clayton.
Not Clayton, man.
Not Clayton.
And it's kind of it, like no other world is quite this bad. And I believe that just the player complaints about Deep Jungle were so intense that every following game in the entire series, every time you get a new objective, it will be very clearly shown in a bar at the top of the fucking screen, because they don't want you to not know what you're supposed to do next.
Deep Jungle ruined the series, man.
It's very opaque in terms of like where you're supposed to go, because the characters won't really tell you. You're kind of just supposed to end up in the right place at the right time.
It's kind of funny to me because
backtrack a bunch,
like, because I like know this game super well. So when I see new people play it, it's like the most frustrating thing I could possibly imagine, because it feels so obvious, but it's of course not that obvious.
No,
there's like a lot of segments where like there's like a scene where like I think it shows like Jane and like one of the gorillas like about to get attacked.
Yeah,
it's like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, and you have to use context clues of where they're standing to figure out where they are in that scene.
Kingdom Hearts 1 makes you think the most of any of the games.
Which is unfortunate, because the more you think about it in hindsight, the more plot holes it has. Kingdom Hearts 1 is the reason why this series is stupid, because every following game has had to fill in all of the plot holes that the first game created.
What's really interesting about about KH1 is that it's the only game in the series to have alternate world cutscenes depending on the order you do them in. So if you don't do Alice in Wonderland first, you see Snow White instead of Alice with Maleficent and the people. One of the coolest ones is so if you skip doing Monstro and you do like Neverland and you go back to doing Monstro, Riku is completely different there. So he's talking in the Ansem voice in the Monstro world, and you don't really see that in like any of the other games. Like there's a lot of detail in that game that isn't like in any of the future ones.
No, and I kind of think that that's because Kingdom Hearts 1 on the face of it has the most straightforward plot, but that also interconnects it more than most of the future games, because in a lot of the future games, the characters that you encounter are all individual to those worlds. So like, for example, in Kingdom Hearts 2, you're not going to run into the same organization members across different worlds. They're all very individualized. They're all off on their own. And so the game doesn't have to really worry about what order you do stuff in. In Kingdom Hearts 1, you are chasing Riku and Kairi, and primarily just Riku, because Sora knows vaguely where he is. So that singular goal and the fact that the game is non-linear does mean that the game has to account for later stage possession Riku being encountered in an area where he's supposed to be more himself, like Monstro. And it is kind of notable that in a lot of these places, he's going to revisit them in the following game, and kind of realize like, oh, I did some fucked up shit. Oops.
I think it's kind of so I'm not sure if KH1 is the first like JRPG to do this, but so when it first came out in Japan, it had less content than it what like we got, and then
Yeah,
they got more. But
so I'm just going to like really quickly elucidate this. So the version of Kingdom Hearts 1 that came out in Japan had slightly less content than the American version, and the American and international version had less content than the final mix version of the game, which we didn't get until it was re-released on the PS3. So there were 3 different PS2 versions of KH1. 2 of them came out in Japan. Only 1 of them came out internationally. Just to clear that up.
And what sucks is that the final mix version, because I think it came out where they were kind of pre-producing or something. Kingdom Hearts 2 came with a lot of
they
from
had
KH2.
confirmation that they were making sequels when the final mix version came.
So like KH1 final mix added the Xemnas. Oh, spoiler, yeah.
The unknown.
The unknown.
And what's kind of funny is that the OG version of the game only had that like Neverland like Phantom fight.
Mm-hmm.
We were the first ones to get Sephiroth and Kurtzisa and the Ice Titan, which is it's like I'm not sure why they gave us so much extra stuff.
I don't know either, and it kind of feels weird to me to think about like KH1 not having the Sephiroth fight in it because it's so infamous.
Yeah.
Like I feel like KH1 Sephiroth might still be the most difficult boss fight across the whole series.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
except for the limit cut fights.
I guess like I think he's harder than his 2 variant for sure.
Oh yeah.
So and then obviously the final mix version added the unknown fight, which is meant to more tie the game into Kingdom Hearts 2, which is kind of funny because the secret ending did not do that.
358 baby.
No, wait. The secret ending in Kingdom Hearts 1 was for
2. No, was it? No, it
was the Riku versus Roxas fight.
Yeah.
Was it? Oh no, you're right. It was for 358. I'm sorry.
I can't remember.
They do like vaguely show it into, but like it's like primarily like a big like thing in Days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious to know whether the secret ending was present in the original Japanese version. I don't know that I've ever.
I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was.
It may be because it's so weird to think that it wasn't.
So KH1 and KH2 they had 2 secret endings. So they had like the first one, like the first one still did show like Riku and Roxas in the big like world that never was. The one that final mix got was like when they like fought. So I think it was probably in like every version, I would assume, like at least the very first ending was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know how much to set up for following games, because the first game ends with a sequel hook, but it isn't so heavy of a sequel hook that like if they hadn't made additional games we'd be like, no, where's all the where's the whole series that's missing here? Because Sora finds Kairi and then leaves her again so he can go and retrieve Riku, but he's gonna take a couple games to actually get there, and it's gonna turn out that Riku retrieves him. So
I mean, who saved who? Am I right?
But it's kind of it's very notable the way that these character relationships are set up in this game in the very beginning and like get extrapolated into all of the following games. Because by the end of KH3, like stuff has happened. It's gotten more complicated, but they're all still in kind of the same spot, but in a more mature sense of the words. Because like in Kingdom Hearts 1, you have Sora and Riku are best friends, and they remain best friends in like a way that a lot of people interpret, through shipping goggles. But I honestly think is like super wholesome. Like, it's really moving.
I don't want to like the thing with the whole Sora Riku thing is like, I think it's just, I think it's just rare to see 2 guys in a JRPG that close that I like completely understand the shipping. But to me, and like it could just because like I'm not gay, but like it's always been like to me that they're like really close friends,
Yeah. And I mean, part of it for me, is there are other characters in the series that I think you could much more easily make a case for. Because I think that like sort of the initial feeling is that Sora and Riku are meant to be best friends, but they're also kind of sort of in a love triangle with Kairi, and then that element gets basically dropped the longer that the games go on, to the point where at the end of 3, the resolution to this love triangle kind of comes out of nowhere.
Nominate me.
But it's kind of funny to see, like, after 10 games, it's basically still the same way that it was at the beginning. They just all are a little bit more grown up about it.
Like 2 years, I think, in the series.
I want to say it's 3 years,
3,
because 2 years passed between
a year passes between 1 and 2.
Yeah,
and then there's 1 year at the end of 3 that passes.
Yeah.
So I think it's at least like 2 years.
Yeah, I'd say about 2 years.
So the Kingdom Hearts timeline.
Baby, let's
in
go,
terms
let's
of like
go.
the actual time that passes, it's kind of hard to quite nail down because the characters don't generally appear to age, with the exception of the original trio. So Aqua is from 10 years in the past and looks the damn same in Kingdom Hearts 3 as she did in Birth by Sleep.
I think she's technically like 28 or something, or like 29 now or something.
And like part of that is because she's in a space that may or may not work like a hyperbaric time chamber.
Yeah,
where she didn't experience the missing decade the same way that you know the World of Light did.
Yeah,
but
I think it's heavily confirmed that it is. Ansem was in there for years.
Yeah.
So all we've really got to go on are, for sure, there's 10 years between Birth by Sleep and Kingdom Hearts 1. There's 1 year between Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 because there are 2 games that concretely establish that timeline.
Yep.
And then we don't know how long it is between 2 and 3. I believe Dream Drop takes place like immediately following 2.
They don't ever hard confirm how long it's been. Like it's probably like a few like.
No, I'm mixing that up. It's 3 after Dream Drop, but you know, you still have Recoded to fit in there somewhere, and we have no idea how long before any of this Union Cross happens.
Union Cross is like millennia ago or something.
Yeah.
Like long time ago.
And then you have the issue of the timelines presented in the worlds, because all the worlds that we see in Union Cross are in the same state that they're in Kingdom Hearts 1.
It's like they're watching a VH like S tape and they keep rewinding.
So like that is basically the canon explanation, but then that kind of makes you question how much free will the Disney characters
have. They don't have free will, man.
They don't have free will, man.
Especially since some of them, not even just the villains, some of them do know about the existence of other worlds.
Yeah.
So there's a lot, and it's all kind of tying back to the way that everything was presented in the first game. And the first game has plot holes to the effect that we literally needed an entire side game to explain why Mickey has no shirt at the end of Kingdom Hearts 1 , but he has a shirt in Kingdom Hearts 2.
Really good, man.
Hey, man,
confirming that he does in fact normally wear shirts.
Yeah, or the fact why they wear the organization coats.
He's a king, man. He's a king. He's got to look presentable.
Yeah, man. Or how about the fact they have to protect the world border?
Oh my God.
That's a throwaway joke, Goofy says.
Yes, I know. Oh, I do. And it's like there's a prime directive that's established in this game that is kind of sort of not really followed in the game.
Yeah, they don't really give a shit. They don't really give a shit.
They really don't, because like they changed the way they look like in 2 games, one so they can breathe, and the other because it's Tim Burton.
Like in K3, there's like one scene I think where John's like, Sora, we gotta protect the world order, and like it's like, oh yeah, I forgot that's a thing we do.
Yeah. There's so much, but like at the same time, this game kind of started like not just a huge franchise, but like one of the largest video game fandoms in existence. Because like I don't think that there are many people as feverish about Mario as there are people who are feverish about Kingdom Hearts.
I'm feverish, man.
Bro, I could feel it. The only cure is Kingdom Hearts 4.
Yo, 2
We're
weeks,
not getting
man,
4 yet. We're not getting 4 yet. We're getting whatever comes between.
We could get 4, Colin. It's been 3 years, man.
4.
We don't know.
We could get 4.
We don't know.
But
yeah,
that's another side and another story.
Hey, reverse rebirth, baby.
Jesus Christ.
But going back to Kingdom Hearts 1 when the 1.5 collection came out reminded me, after having played every other game that followed it in the series, it's kind of like going back to the first Devil May Cry.
Yeah, that's a very good.
It is like a really crude but still functional like foundation for all the stuff that came after. Because like, so I'm about to get canceled, but the Devil May Cry game that I have the most experience with is DMC. And comparing the way that it plays with Devil May Cry 1. Devil May Cry 1 is playable and it is a product of its time, but it is so much less like flashy and complicated than the later games in the series. But it's also understandable why people fell really deeply in love with the first game, to the point that it became, this massive cult hit that spawned 6 sequels now, if you
6, something like that.
I think like 4 or 5, yeah.
And Kingdom Hearts started it around the same time. It has like 10 sequels.
Ayo.
Can't wait for the next mobile game.
And I'm gonna actually cry if they announce one of those.
It's gonna come. It's gonna be there.
Yeah, they're just gonna announce like Kingdom Hearts
Genshin
NFT
Hearts, man. Genshin Hearts.
A Kingdom Hearts NFT at the anniversary.
Nomura won't
like,
save us.
That's like the bad timeline.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Every zipper Nomura puts on a character is a new NFT.
Oh my god. All right, guys. For every, he's gonna show us a teaser image, but the entire thing is covered in belts and zippers. And for every NFT that's bought, he'll take away one of the belts until we have the cover of the next game.
Oh my god, that's actually like really genius.
Next cover.
I depressed myself, and on that depressing note, we're gonna take a break. Oh my god. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Something that we wanted to make sure that we got to discuss, because it is such a heavy focus of all of these fan events, and one of the biggest reasons the series has such an enduring legacy is the music of Kingdom Hearts. Every game in the series has been composed by Yoko Shimomura, who also worked on
not every song, but
every game I said.
Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry,
oh my gosh. Trying to call me out. Look at you.
Trying to rub my sadness, man.
Who also composes for the Xenoblade series. Used to compose for the Mario and Luigi games, if you like the music there. Has been working with Square for a while. You're about to hear her work in the Live Alive remake, because she did the music for that too. And a whole bunch of really good anime. So
I think she did Street Fighter 2 as well, right?
I believe she did. Yes, she did Street Fighter 2.
Checks. Yeah.
She got Helsing, I think.
So my personal favorite song in Kingdom Hearts 1 is one of my favorites across the entire series, and handily is one of the first tracks that you actually hear, which is Destati, which is first heard when you encounter the dark side in the Dive to the Heart from the first game. And it's just this very intense, heavy, choral, honestly, ominous track that gets remixed and reused through a lot of the following games, and it kind of sticks with me. Like, it's a really haunting piece of music that just really cranks the drama up instantly.
Yeah.
And every time that you hear it kick in all of the following games, you get this oh my god, shit's about to go down feel.
Yeah.
Something really dramatic is about to happen. Bailey, how about you?
All right, so I had a really hard time trying to pick one because I just love almost every song. My favorite is probably the Hollow Bastion Field theme.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
It's just like really goddamn catchy, and I think it's just like it manages to be so like atmospheric to the world. I think so. Like all the worlds have really great themes that like match with their like general like locales, but like Hollow Bastions just feels very like endgamey. Like if like it feels like you're in like the last like steps, you know. And it just I don't know, like it's also just a lot of like childhoodness, like just like childhood sentimentality too, because I was in that world for so long.
Yeah, I know. Big same, because Hollow Bastion, it's not quite as opaque in what you're supposed to do as Deep Jungle. It is definitely opaque in how you're supposed to get there.
There's a couple of weird things in that world, yeah.
Because there's a floating platform maze, there's an actual maze in the sewer.
Yeah. A lot of verticality in that world. Gets kind of confusing. But once you get the hang of it, it is pretty easy. But I remember as a kid, going like, I don't know where to go.
And then there's Riku. The I think you fight him twice actually in that world, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you fight twice.
And there's the section of the game where he steals your Keyblade.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one that I'm very glad that it's as good as it is, because you have to hear it for probably several hours.
Yeah, which Riku stealing the Keyblade is a big plot point, or plot hole rather.
There is so much stuff.
That's not a plot hole.
Well, it kind of is, because at that point the Keyblade is supposed to be only one item, and Riku was the original master.
Well, at that point, yeah.
It was a big plot hole they had to fix.
They made especially for that one scene, Nate. They made it for you.
But then they still failed to explain how exactly Riku took the Keyblade and prevented Sora from using it.
Because it was originally his.
Yeah, it was
like
originally
that specific.
Yes, that part I understood was because Riku chooses the path of darkness at the beginning of the game to get off of the islands, that Sora ended up the chosen one instead. But also we learned later that he was kind of already a chosen one, because he's got, a whole other person dwelling in his heart at the beginning of this game, and he carries a second one for the majority of it.
It's so weird because they act like Sora's heart is such a blank slate that it just accepts everybody, which is why so many hearts run to his.
The general fan term for is that he has a heart hotel.
So my interpretation of this plot point is more that Sora is such a force of relentless positivity and light that like he just has.
I'm sorry, Colin.
What?
I'm sorry. We got the.
We did, but let me finish this, and then we'll move on to Nate.
Okay.
I know what I'm doing here. It's okay. My interpretation of this is that Sora is so full of positivity and light and like goodness, and these are all genuine forces in the world of Kingdom Hearts, that this is just a thing that his heart is capable of doing, of supporting other people while he still has to use it to exist himself. Like he can give as much, basically as much love as he needs to other people, because he's got more than enough of it to go around. That was always my interpretation of why he can do that.
And that's kind of true. Because in Birth by Sleep, they do kind of say that he gives part of his heart to one of the characters.
And this is when he's like 4.
Yeah. Sora's badass, man.
Okay, so Nate.
Hey, it's me.
Favorite piece of music from Kingdom Hearts 1.
So here's what's funny about Kingdom Hearts 1 music is that I inadvertently remember more from the later halves, because I think the later games music is much, much stronger than one's. However, the theme that stays in my mind a lot is the Night of Fate theme, which is when the Heartless first attack.
Sure.
And that just, yeah. It's such, I think, goes into what my personality is, because it's such a change in high octave energy, where where Destati is more like closed in, that gives a more panic, like we got to go fast, we got to keep going. we don't know where anybody is. We don't know where our friends are. We got to find our friends. We got to get off the island.
Yeah, because especially at the beginning of the game, during the first Heartless attack, you and Sora both have no idea what the hell is happening, what these little things are that are attacking. You know that they were in Sora's dream, but that is the extent of it.
And you can't damage them now.
Yep. Until you go get the Keyblade.
Yep.
I wouldn't ordinarily do this, but we have some merch that might interest you and Nate that they just announced. Sora and Kairi Tamagotchis?
Really?
Yes.
Because Sora is too stupid to raise himself.
I don't understand what this is.
Himbo goals.
Goofy, feed me. I need to eat.
I'm gonna kill Kairi again. Oh my god.
The Tamagotchi just interrupts you every 5 steps that you take in real life and announces that this would be a good place to look for some ingredients.
Yeah. Or goes, tell me his name. And then you hear the Sora one starts with an S.
The music. I think Kingdom Hearts 1 is the first game that had like such a varied array of battle themes for each location ad.
So it kind of started a tradition of having individual world and battle themes for every single level. And this isn't necessarily something that was new in video games, but it was kind of impressive for the time because, again, we were so used to these things being really low effort in terms of games using these licenses that having every single world have a really impressive and individual piece of both field music and battle music and occasionally cutscene music kind of it sticks with you. And it's one of the reasons why they made sure that they brought Shimomura back again and again and again and again, because she knows what she's doing and she knows how to crank out a whole bunch of really good stuff.
She's insane, man. I have no idea how she makes such consistently good music so often. It's really insane.
And what's really awesome is that usually when they do that, they have an overarching theme for the music, which in Kingdom Hearts case, it all ties back to eventually Dearly Beloved, but there is so much music that doesn't repeat that theme. That is completely different.
There's a massive subset of this community is solely about the music, and the amount of connective tissue in these songs is ridiculous. There is such an insane attention to detail in these tracks.
Yeah. And I think that helps what makes the music so unique in of itself is that, you can always go back and hear it. Even looking at Roxas's theme, I'm surprised how much of his theme is repeated over and over again as the games go on. It's insane.
Before we get off of the music, I do also want to, if you guys didn't know this already, the legend of the icon, Hikaru Utada, who is the vocalist for all of the main themes of the game, so that's Simple and Clean, Sanctuary, Face My Fears, and Don't Think Twice, is a gay icon, has been a supporter of gay rights for many, many years, and came out as non-binary last year.
Yeah.
That is all very, very cool to me.
which I think the coolest way she revealed how she was, or they at this point now.
She or they, she specified.
She or they. Cool. That is awesome. How she came out was like, oh, you thought I was straight? And it was like, oh.
she
icon.
Yes.
Wow. But so, some cool trivia about Utada is that for some reason, I don't know why they do this with Kairi, but her hairstyle is tied to Utada's for some reason. I'm not sure if it's coincidental.
It's almost unfortunate because my hot take is that it doesn't look good in 3. I really don't like her character design in the third game.
I've come around to the 3 look, but it's a really weird. I'm not sure why it's her hair that's it's a little weird.
Because her 3 look is very close to her 1 look, and I don't like her 1 look.
She looks a lot younger in 3 than she does in 2, which is
that is my big issue with it. Is everybody else looks older?
She looks younger. Yeah,
that's fair. Which is really weird because they do the same thing to Riku. They cut Riku's hair and kind of make it like a weird.
I hate Riku's hair too. I hate Riku's hair too.
Riku looks he's 22 in KH. He's in his mid-20s.
Uh,
So who has the best hairstyle, guys?
in the first game,
Yeah. Donald
mm,
Buggers?
Maleficent.
Maleficent.
Really, Maleficent.
Fashion icon.
I can't wait until we reach Quadram and we get the Angelina Jolie version of Maleficent in the series.
Bro, I can't wait to Sora comes out, he's on a high rooftop, and then all you see is somebody swinging by. You go, what the hell is that? And then it just Spider-Man flips out onto the thing.
No.
Yo, when they bring Marvel and Star Wars, baby, it's gonna be insane.
Absolutely not.
We're gonna have Terra and fucking Anakin.
I refuse.
Yeah. Bro, Tony Stark with as Sora just hanging around.
No, wait, Tony Stark and fucking Scrooge, man. They're gonna be like best friends.
Yo, and then they'll bring sea salt ice cream to across the whole world.
Oh my god.
Yo, wait, the Avengers gonna eat sea salt ice cream together?
Yeah, yeah, man.
Visual depiction. Here's the rails. Here's this conversation right now.
That's what Kingdom Hearts
This
does.
conversation has never heard of the rails.
That's just classic Kingdom Hearts conversation.
Yeah, man. But and I think kind of steering back conversation into it is that it's the real joy of Kingdom Hearts is that it's such a massive playground that you can do anything with, that inspires these talks of, oh, what if we had this? Oh, what if we did this? What if, we had this massive crossover? Because this is the first massive crossover video games or any form of media really had into this degree.
Except for, Super Smash Brothers was out.
Smash Bros, yeah. But I think that
Smash Bros was more contained at that point.
At least back then, I think like Cage at least surpasses the scale of what Smash Bros was doing.
Yeah, sure. I'm just like, let's not forget. I believe, wasn't Melee out?
I don't think so.
If you think about the franchise Melee represented, it was Fire Emblem, Legend of Zelda, Mario, Ice Climbers.
It was still Nintendo stuff solely.
It was all still Nintendo.
Like when you reach Brawls, when sure they are, I think.
But we're getting. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I honestly think that kind of engendered some issues that would go forward surrounding. So speaking of Smash Brothers, the fandom kind of has a habit of being extremely vocal about what they want in future Kingdom Hearts games and interpreting literally any symbol in a Disney movie that even looks like a heart as confirmation. When Frozen came out, there's this moment towards the beginning of the movie where Anna and Hans are singing their shallow love duet, and they do the heart hands thing, and everybody immediately on the internet, on Twitter, just everywhere was, oh my god, Frozen and Kingdom Hearts confirmed. And it turns out yes, but also people went nuts over this.
But Colin, you don't understand, man, right? Because in Frozen 2, Elsa was in the realm of darkness, man. She was on the beach.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of cringe crap in Kingdom Hearts 2 that doesn't, or in Frozen 2 that doesn't make sense. So
yeah,
it's a bad movie.
When's the Frozen 2 podcast?
But it created a similar situation to Super Smash Brothers where people were just demanding stuff that they wanted to see put in these games.
Was it really that bad?
So it's not to the degree because Nomura is not really as online as Masahiro Sakurai is. But this fan community goes absolutely nuts over things that they want to see happen and expectations that they have for future games. And people were like, when are we going to see Final Fantasy worlds? When are we going to see more Final Fantasy characters? When are we going to see this, that, and the other Disney movie? And it kind of feels like it's like, guys, just let them make their game. They're not going to put the thing in if it doesn't make sense. Yeah. And the more you ask them, where's this, that, or the other world, the greater the odds are that we're going to get Cars.
No, so no,
Bro, I would say Cars world.
Nomura is somebody who does things out of spite.
Yes.
So I want to.
That's why I'm saying this.
I want to see a Cars world so badly, man. You have no idea. I want to see Zora as a car.
Yeah, yo, that would be hype.
It's just
As you
gonna be,
fucking do drift
So
combos.
dumb.
he's
So
gonna have like two differently
dumb.
like colored like headlights.
And I think that that's kind of it's kind of funny considering that there is one world specific to Kingdom Hearts 1 that we will never see or even hear referenced ever again, and that is Deep Jungle. Because so Tarzan of the Apes was originally written by Edgar Rice Burroughs. His estate licensed out the property to Disney to make the Tarzan movie, and then they basically made the direct to DVD sequel without properly asking.
That's kind of crazy.
So the license was revoked. I believe that it was probably in the agreement to have the world appear in Kingdom Hearts 1 that it could appear if they were to re-release the game, because they probably already knew they were going to do that. But I don't think that they knew that they were going to do an HD remaster, and we were all kind of collectively breathing a sigh of relief that there wasn't just a chunk of the game missing because the lawyers wouldn't let it happen.
Can you imagine?
Especially since a lot of the assets for KH1 were lost.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. So for those of you who aren't aware, the KH1 source code, I believe the entirety of it, or like the vast majority of it, was lost.
The vast majority of it, yeah.
When they made the PS3 HD remix, they used a lot of pre-existing models, and they had to remake a lot from the ground up. So Sora's model, for example, is taken from Dream Drop Distance. And if you compare it, like if you look up like a comparison shot online of the 1.5 Sora and the PS2 like Sora, there's a very clear, like, he's a lot like chubbier in the PS2 version.
It's
and
kind
there's
of
a lot of
his design has gone through, like, even just this base design has gone through some stuff, because they also redesigned KH1 era Sora for Rechain of Memories to make him look closer to the way that he looks in 2, where he's like a lot softer and a lot more anime boy.
Anime boy. And then you get the version of the outfit where it's above his fucking knees because he's grown up.
Yep.
That's pretty good.
Do you remember your first reaction to seeing the big shoes?
I think I was too
fucking
young.
banana boat shoes.
I think because I'm so used to it, and I was so young that I like never really questioned it. I was like, yo.
I didn't question it because I thought, oh, this is like a reference to Disney cartoons where they have the big goofy glove hands and
that's
the
probably
big
what
goofy
it
feet.
is.
That's why he has the fingerless gloves, is because they didn't want to give him.
So speaking of, when Kingdom Hearts 1 was in development, Sora's initial concept design, he was gonna look like Zidane, like kinda. So like he had like a tail and like cat ears or something, and he had a chainsaw, baby. He had a chainsaw.
Some of this is stuff that you can find in the art book that was released with 1.5 Remix, which I have. I'm very upset that they didn't do one for 2.5.
No, they did.
Yeah.
Oh, they did. No, they did. What am I thinking of? There's a different one that I'm thinking of that they didn't do an art book.
I got all three right here.
Yeah, because I think I had to buy 2.5 twice because I bought the big collector's edition only on Square Enix store, and then I had to buy that limited edition for the art book.
But anyway, they included a whole bunch of concept art for Sora, and then there's still more of it that's being posted as the years have gone by. But it's kind of funny to see like some of these pictures and these concept pictures of like a much brattier looking, honestly, Sora. Like there's this one of him like sitting on a throne that was later kind of retooled into the Melody of Memories artwork. And he's like got his legs crossed. Yes, I'm wearing an Angry Birds sweatshirt. He's got his legs crossed, and he's like literally like making the DreamWorks face at the camera.
It's a really interesting piece because they do that same because there's also art of him in like H3 with that. And I'm not sure why they like what the like meaning of that art is because he just looks like really like super like egotistical.
I have to imagine that like there was an earlier draft of Kingdom Hearts 1 where like he became the king at some point.
Yo, he's the king.
Yeah.
He's the king of Kingdom Hearts, man.
I think some of it is also harkening back to his original design influence of the lion, you know, the king of the jungle type of deal.
But he's one of those characters who you can extrapolate a lot from like the way that he was created about like what they might have originally intended, especially since we have, you know, basically an entire prototype Kingdom Hearts game, the Bouncer.
Man, the Bouncer is that's where Dog Street
Yep.
That's where Dog Street comes from.
That's where Pence's shirt comes from, and then it gets changed in Kingdom Hearts 3, so it doesn't say that anymore.
Yeah, yo, I want to go to Dog Street so badly, and I have no idea.
Oh my god! Oh, this like opened up flashbacks for me. Jesus Christ!
See Scion.
Come on, let's hear it.
Let's do it.
Noisy memories.
Of the Bouncer.
Great memories.
Like I remember watching my cousin play the Bouncer and thinking like this looks weird.
It was
and
weird.
Now looking back on it, I was like, holy hell, that is just Sora, but what if he was actually in a Final Fantasy game?
It's just weird adult Sora.
Yeah.
Yo, what if he grows up to be Scion Barzad?
Did you remember that off the top of your head, or did you look that up?
No, like his name is just it's such a distinct name that I just know off the top
like
of my
Edge
head.
Maverick. You can't quite forget it once you hear it.
Hey, Line God.
Cassius Bright, another one.
Cassius Bright.
But you know, because we have all of these like influences that went into Kingdom Hearts 1, and it almost has like it almost is a bubble compared to a lot of the other games, because the other games are primarily influenced by Kingdom Hearts as opposed to the things that went into KH1. It's one of the reasons why there's a lot in this game that doesn't carry forward into the later games. Like I mentioned, it was a long time before they were comfortable doing really any amount of platforming again. All of the levels in Kingdom Hearts 2 and even Chain of Memories are mostly flat. If there's any verticality at all, there's still big platforms that you can fight on. You're not like trying to like jump over them to get to a thing on the other side, really.
It's kind of funny because like the way that KH2 like controls with like they added the cavern of like they added like that whole like post game area. Like if 2 had more platforming, it'd be really good, because the way that game feels is so much smoother. So they kind of like overcorrected themselves.
Yeah, and then they did it in the other direction when flow motion became a thing, where like we're gonna have platforming, but it's gonna be dumb platforming that is
I love
not as hard to fuck up. I also love flow motion.
It's just really stupid. And
I love the absolutely massive like open vertical areas that you could explore in Dream Drop Distance. It Dream Drop Distance almost felt like a soft reboot that was kind of bringing things back to the way that they were in Kingdom Hearts 1.
It's because like KH1 to me feels the most grounded in terms of the whole exploration part of it. Like and that's kind of why I really love KH1 so much, is that like when I'm in like when you're in a world, it kind of feels like you can kind of really get like in some worlds it feels like you can really get like lost in them. Like in Hollow Bastion, it really feels like you're ascending a castle, you know. And you're able to just like fall down the entirety of it and just like go from the ground up. Like there's a really good sense of scale in KH1. I don't think any of the other games really have managed to like nail down, because they focus so much on like aerial mode, on just like flow motion and just like really high speeds, you know.
Well, I think that like the fascinating thing about that is that some of the worlds in Kingdom Hearts 1 that appear in later games end up being expanded in scope. So like, for example, one of the big criticisms of Olympus in the first game, Olympus Coliseum, was that it literally was just the Coliseum and the courtyard. So they ended up adding the entire underworld like I don't even want to say half. It's like 4/5 of
the
the world.
Yeah, it's like massive chunk of the world. Yeah.
Or Hollow Bastion getting, the entire area that the castle is supposed to be, the seat of. You get the whole town underneath it. Or Traverse Town gets, a whole other half of town in Dream Drop Distance.
Traverse Town. So like Traverse Town is like I think my favorite like hub world in like any game.
Yeah.
Like I fucking love Traverse Town a lot.
They didn't really try to do a hub world for any of the other games, I don't think.
So like KH2,
really.
like Hollow Bastion's like pseudo kind of hub world.
True.
Has like none of the other games really have one, which is kind of weird.
And then Traverse Town, you don't really like. It's kind of. I think Hollow Bastion is probably the closest that it comes to, and then Radiant Garden is the closest that any of the games come to having an actual hub world, because like when Traverse Town first appears, you really just go through it, and then like you go back to it every once in a while to shop, but nothing else really happens there until like the midpoint. Radiant Garden stuff continues to happen over the course of the story. Twilight Town you don't really go back to, and Land of Departure you don't go back to.
No.
Until you kill Eric.
Yeah.
and then in 3 you like, that was one of the big weird things about 3 was like it sets it up like Twilight Town's going to be a hub world, and then you literally never have to go back.
3 has the fucking like Dream Drop Distance pacing.
yeah. I mean, you gotta go back to Twilight Town for Little Chef. Gotta crack those eggs.
No, you don't, because you can just do it from a save point.
Yeah.
You don't even have to go back.
No. You have to go back and hand in the fucking like Moogle letters, man, for the items column.
I guess.
Yeah. Actually, that's the weird part about Twilight Town and 3, just in general, is that it feels smaller for some reason.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
Well, 3,
it's much smaller.
3 because they cut down, like you can't go to like it's just
one
that
area.
one plaza. Yeah, it's just that one screen, which is probably my biggest problem with 3. Like 3 is my like personal favorite. But like that's like probably my biggest issue with 3 is just that one world and how they handled it.
But like in terms of stuff that carries forward, there's also, like we said, the non-linearity. Every single game in the franchise has made some attempt to copy the formula of Kingdom Hearts 1, where you have some choice in what worlds you tackle when. Even in cases where it doesn't necessarily make sense for you to have those choices, like in Birth by Sleep. This is one of the reasons why the game has such like a weird, weirdly intertwined story, is because the characters are going to the worlds in different orders.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a creative use of that. But in all the other games, it's very like they're all so isolated that it almost doesn't matter what order you go to them in.
Yeah.
But you are always given at least some kind of a choice. Eventually, you will have to do almost all of them, if not all of them. Atlantica in the first game, and technically the second game is optional. I don't recommend not doing it, but
Lion King in the second game is optional too.
Yeah, it is. I do like in 1 how, so like one of the weirdest worlds to me was probably like Neverland. But like, the more I look back on it, the more I think I like it.
So, I mean, the obvious weirdness with Neverland is just the fact that you don't go to Neverland.
Neverland.
It's just Captain Hook's ship.
And the Big Ben, man. Can't forget about the Big Ben.
And that's well, yeah, and that's one of the few elements of KH1 that saw like a complete brand new world created for Days, because all the rest of the Days worlds are just rips from the PS2 games. Neverland is original because Birth by Sleep wasn't out yet. And in Birth by Sleep, you actually get to explore Neverland. But that was one of the bigger complaints. Was hey, we don't actually get to go to Neverland and like see the Lost Boys and stuff like that. It's just the ship. You learn how to fly, but then you can't actually fly outside of.
Like that world is really interesting to me because it feels more like an original world than it does the
Yeah.
Disney world, because
Mhm.
it like directly ties to Hollow Bastion,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
directly tied to the whole prince. Like it doesn't feel like you're like any of the prior like Disney worlds, because it
Yeah.
just feels so direct in what's happening.
Mhm.
Yeah, because isn't in canon that that's supposed to be Hook is taking Wendy and Kyrie to Maleficent.
Yeah.
He's taking them to Hollow Bastion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
His ship, his like ship can able is like able to fly across
yeah,
space for some reason. Like Mothra, man.
yeah, like
Mothra's
Monstro.
Mothra's a fucking space whale. That's kind of fucking like fucking scary, man.
So as we start to wrap up, my question for you guys at the end of the episode here is there an element of Kingdom Hearts 1 that you want to see explored further that you don't think has gotten enough attention in the series since?
What do you mean by like element? Like
Yeah,
Like, is there
thing?
some not even the story, just like anything about the way that the game feels, anything about the story that you don't think got the attention that it should have, or anything that you just want to see like just done again that they haven't necessarily done?
I think by far KH1 has the best collectathon and exploration aspects to it.
yeah,
I just like KH3 tried like, because like KH3 feels like a weird middle ground of like KH1 and 2.
yeah.
I want to see them try to like tackle like not really like scale better, but just like have a lot more like meaningful exploration.
Like the Trinity stuff in 1.
Yeah, like the Trinities, the Dalmatians, those like hidden like places you can't reach unless you get like the weird like Metroidvania like aspect to it, like with like learning like high jump and like just like feeling like you're like actually reaching new areas. Like that sense of discovery, I think, was kind of like lost the further you get into the games, and I kind of want to see them like try to try to bring that back.
Yeah.
Nate, how about you?
That makes a lot of sense now that he says that. I'm also in agreement with this. But another one is that Kingdom Hearts over the years compared to 1, like there's a lot of story aspects like that they just don't carry through all the way. Like there are certain worlds where you're like, hey, that world kind of didn't feel like part of the story. I hope they kind of bring that forward more, where their overarching plot is a little bit more in your face. They started recovering it in Kingdom Hearts 3. A little bit better about that.
Because like KH1 is the most direct in what it's like in what all the worlds tie to, whereas after 1, for the most part, it's very like it tries to be a lot more thematic. Like KH2 kind of like Birth by Sleep and Days and Dream Drop are like very like thematically tied like together. Three's like a mix, and I think that's like my hot take is like that's probably like the best it's been done. Is like when they tie in some original plot, but like also thematically they also make sense, you know. But no, I do agree they should be like more like direct ties.
And then a little bit more tied into that is a little more insight into the Princesses of Heart, and that's it for me.
We got some new princesses,
man. Mine, as per usual for me, I'm gonna go broad. Mine is the sense of like the sense of wonder and originality and newness that I don't think that any of the following games quite managed to capture in the same way. And like part of that is just my desire to see like some kind of like real soft reboot for this series. Like I would love to see a brand new protagonist that we've never met before get their own story and like find out what's happening maybe in other parts of the universe, or even in the other the worlds of the world of darkness and the world in between. Because I think that some of the games have tried to have sort of the same fresh-faced start as Kingdom Hearts 1. I think that Birth by Sleep and 3 both tried pretty hard for this, but they were also like super duper beholden to concepts that we'd already seen before. And like the audience's awareness of what was supposed to be happening. I would honestly love to see the series just throw me for a loop the way that it did in the first game.
You gotta wait
Yeah.
for the fucking Verum Rex game. I'm calling.
Yeah.
We'll see. We will see. Because like something that I go back to often is I love, you know, encountering things that I'm not expecting in series that have gone on for this long. And I'm hoping that that is something that we get to see in the near future, because we're hoping that we get a big announcement in the next
Maybe
couple
2
of
weeks. 2 weeks.
Okay, and that is going to be it for our special Stray Memories episode on Kingdom Hearts 1. We will probably eventually go back to the rest of the series after we finish Final Fantasy. We just wanted to get this episode out for the 20th anniversary celebration. So I want to thank you guys at home for listening to another episode of the Stray Pixels podcast. We post every Tuesday on your podcast app of choice and on the Noisy Pixel YouTube channel. What's something from Kingdom Hearts 1 that you guys want to see carried forward? Do you guys have a favorite track from the first game that's really meaningful to you? Who was your favorite character the first time you played Kingdom Hearts 1, when you were young or when you were older and it was on the PS3? Let us know in the comments on YouTube. If there's anything you'd like us to talk about on a future episode, you can leave a comment under this video or talk to us on Twitter. You can find me, Colin, at the Arcane Ranger. You can find Nate at Less Than Nathan, and you can find Bailey at Orpheus Joshua, or the site itself at Noisy Pixel News. The Stray Pixels podcast is brought to you by NoisyPixel.net. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers who work hard to bring you the latest news, reviews, previews, podcasts, and more. Please like, subscribe, and comment to keep up with our future content, and we will see you guys next week.
I've been having these weird thoughts lately.
I don't know if
Like, is any of this for real
man.
or not?